UCLA is a university with unlimited possibilities for students that desire world-class academics and research, unmatched diversity, incredible cultural and social opportunities, successful alumni and career networking, first-class campus facilities, plus America's top intercollegiate sports teams. Located in Westwood, just a few miles from the Pacific Ocean, UCLA's 1 square mile campus is surrounded by famous cities such as Bel Air, Beverly Hills, Brentwood, and Santa Monica.
Hi everybody, and welcome to UCLA Bruin Talk. Along with Naomi Manea, I'm Dave Marcus. In just a few moments, we are going to relive one of the great moments from the UCLA Spring Sports Calendar.
Before we meet this week's guest, let's take a look at the upcoming events.
How do you fit an 11th championship banner on an outfield wall that's already packed with pictures of great past champions? It's a good problem to have, and a couple of the people that are responsible for this problem are with us today. Third baseman Julie Burney and UCLA softball head coach Kelly Inouye-Perez. Congratulations on bringing home a national championship.
Thank you.
What a spectacular run for the Bruins through, you decimated the tournament. A couple of run rule wins here in the regionals, and then you go to Oklahoma City, and it just kept rolling.
Yeah, well, I think this team clearly was on a mission. You know, we had a vision to be able to identify the 2010 season by 3 things: creating a real strong culture and getting back to what it means to be a Bruin. And our senior class did a wonderful job of bringing back the tradition of UCLA. Number 2 was our competitive excellence, being able to compete at any moment, no matter what the game presented. We were going to continue to compete until the very, very end. And then the 3rd thing was we're in it to win it. So, you know, do whatever it takes to stick to the little things to get us to add up to some big things in the end. And as you see, they did a wonderful job. You know, they never looked back, and they competed to the very end. And at the end of the day, we had a wonderful tournament and a great finish to a 2010 season.
And Coach, when it was all over and the Bruins were the national champions, you drew your team around and told them to consider how many people had tried to get to that exact spot.
You know what? Absolutely. I think ultimately it comes down to what it means to be a Bruin, and we have expectations. And the one thing that I did share with them is the only expectations that we have in 2010 are what they were capable of doing themselves, because there is a big tradition, and there are a lot of people that shoot for that. Every team in the country at the start of their season has a goal to be able to get to that point. But you have to understand the process of how to get there and respect the game. And this team did a wonderful job of that. They stuck to their vision. They were committed to what it meant to be a Bruin. We were guided by some really strong leadership with our seniors that will be greatly missed. And at the end of the day, we just played great softball on a big stage, and it was a lot of fun.
Julie, you're one of those seniors who got to cap your career with a national championship. How sweet was it coming along with your coach, who was a first-year coach when you were a freshman?
Yeah, when I came in, Coach I was given the head coaching job, so we kind of started as freshmen and ended as senior. I mean, I ended as senior when her 4th year, so it was a great run and exciting.
The senior position is a really important position on the team. As mentioned, the leadership's crucial. What did you do to lead your team?
I was more of the leader by example. I'm not a very outspoken person, so I kind of lead my team by example and kind of have them follow. So.
You know, I think Julie did a wonderful job also of going back and getting in touch with a lot of the alumni and bringing back what it means to be a Bruin, and made sure that all the Bruins understood from the senior class down on how they walk and how they talk and how they dress. And those are the little things that add up to the big things, because when you get a team to commit to one common thing, everything matters. And Julie did an outstanding job of pulling the team together the entire year. So at the end of the day, we knew one thing. We don't have control over whether we're going to get the win at the end of the year, but we know one thing: we're going to act and walk and talk like Bruins. And that was a big part of we walk away from 2010 feeling really good about how we went about it. And you know, the senior class, and Julie in particular, did a wonderful job of that.
Julie, this was a unique Bruin team. I mean, we think about the Bruins and great pitching throughout the years, maybe good slap hitters, but the power this team showed. You led the team in home runs. Tell us about how you guys were able to bash so many home runs.
A lot of things that come back to the home runs is we were strong. We were stronger than ever, and that goes back to Coach Lynn, our weight coach. And we worked so hard in the weight room, and conditioning and everything was basically doubled this year. So we worked really hard for that.
Coach, the start of the year was a bit of a struggle for the Bruins. Megan Langenfeld wasn't really fit, and you know, she came back and played such a huge role in the run to the championship. But with the struggles early in the season, how much more sweet was the ultimate prize?
You know, the rewarding part is every single person on this team. There were 20 people on this team were able to contribute. And the one thing that I said in the very beginning of the season was our strength in 2010 was our depth. We had 20 players. We had different varieties of experience and levels of position play. And I said that our depth would be our experience. Little did I know how deep we would have to tap into that with the amount of injuries. We lost Katie Schroeder, our leadoff All-American center fielder, in the beginning of the season. You know, Megan Langenfeld had been injured throughout the entire season, and we had several of them. At one point, we opened up Pac-10, and 6 of my starters were out of the lineup. But it allowed for other people to step up and fill in different roles, and our depth was our strength. We didn't skip a beat and didn't go too high and low. It wasn't perfect, but we did great things. So at the end, and even to the last day, you know, on the championship day, I think Julie's the one that said it best, is every single person participated, every single girl in the starting lineup was able to get a hit. I mean, you know, that doesn't happen. You know, you get to the point where usually, you know, one person, you can say, oh my God, I had a phenomenal tournament. But what you saw with this team, you know, this team was very dynamic with their ability to spread out the success. And this year, for the first time, in 2010, we had 20 girls that were named MVPs of his team. At the banquet, couldn't say there was just one individual. There were 20 of them that really impacted and bought into what UCLA softball is all about. So it felt absolutely wonderful to walk away from that knowing that everybody had a piece of it, and every single Bruin made a difference in 2010.
There was an incredible air of confidence about this team, you know, especially watching the championship series against Arizona, your longtime rivals, but there was just a quiet confidence your team seemed to personify during that run.
You know, like I said, the little things. It came down to they respected the game. They appreciated the fact that they had an opportunity to get out there. Their expectations were what we were capable of doing ourselves, but because everybody impacted the lineup, there was less pressure on anyone, and we had it was a lot of fun. They couldn't wait to have an opportunity, but we took it, you know, as John Wooden said, you know, yesterday means nothing, and we have no control over tomorrow, so create a masterpiece today, and we live by that creed. Today is the most important day. Let's get out there and let's compete and respect the game, and we literally did that from regionals to supers to the World Series to the Championship Series. We took it one day at a time. I don't think we ever mentioned today is we have to be bigger. You know, today was just another day to get out there and play UCLA softball, and that's what I'm most proud of. They got out there and they played to their potential, and at the end of the day ended up in a championship, and it was a lot of fun watching them play.
Previously, you mentioned that your biggest athletic thrill was hitting your first home run. How does that compare now to this national championship?
Oh my gosh, now this is by far the biggest thrill. Nothing could compare to it.
In your dreams, how different was it than in the reality?
You know, it's kind of funny because our team went into the game not even thinking it was a championship game. It was just another game against Arizona, and that's, I think, what really helped us. Nothing fazed us, nothing got in the way or anything. So,
Julie, we talked about your home run hitting, but your defense was great this year. The left side of your infield was just spectacular. What was the key to playing solid defense all year long?
Actually, the girl to my left, Monica Harrison, we worked together so well, always communicating and always being on the same page, so that really helped out a lot.
Now, Monica Harrison, of course, she had some injury, so she wore that mask. What was the first time you saw her wear the mask? What was your reaction?
Well, our whole team was all on her side. We didn't let her think it was embarrassing or anything like that, so she fell into it and she got comfortable with it, so it was good.
Kelly, you have tasted national championships before as a player, as an assistant, but tell us the feeling about having the first one as a head coach.
You know, it's such an interesting question. I'm very fortunate, I'm honored to be able to be a part of this wonderful tradition as a player, as an assistant, and now as a head coach. But ultimately, for me, the proudest moment in 2010 was seeing this senior class and this team be able to play ball the way they did. It was a great feeling out there, and I had said it was a very familiar feeling. It felt like UCLA softball. We were out there, we want to be at our best at the end of the season. We expect to be there. We get out there and they executed, and it was a lot of fun doing it. And that part of it, being it back and being able to be familiar with that was a wonderful feeling.
You know, you got some props for your defensive prowess when you were a catcher at UCLA. They talked a lot on the broadcast about the catchers at UCLA and the strong tradition of catchers. And wondering how much, you know, seeing the field every pitch as a catcher helps you as a manager.
Well, I think ultimately at the end of every season, defense is what wins championships. You know, and you wouldn't have noticed that because, you know, for us this year it was all about our offense. But literally, if you looked at the tournament really closely, you know, our defense at the end is what kept us in those ball games, because those crucial plays prevented the other team from gaining any momentum. So defense is the strength. Defense at the end of the day does win championships to allow you to stay in a game long enough to come up with a timely hit. And as a catcher, I loved the view of the field, loved it. I could see everything. I would direct traffic left and right, and I loved working with the pitcher. There is no greater view of the field, and it does help translate into where we should be positioned. But I have the greatest coaching staff in the country. I have Lisa Fernandez, who obviously is, you know, the most decorated player, and as a pitcher, as a third baseman, as a hitter, does a great job of calling pitches with the pitchers this year. And Gina Vecchione, Hall of Famer, outfielder, and knows the game and better than anyone as far as how to cover the outfield. And that allowed us, and Natasha Watley in the infield, you know, has a great sense and a feel for the game. So all of us have played. We've won championships. We've all graduated from UCLA, and we all have a passion for this sport. So we give back to these girls, and ultimately, at the end of the day, it's them that's playing between the white lines. Oh, it was a lot of fun to watch.
You mentioned earlier kind of the pillars of the pyramid of success. Mm-hmm. And obviously, this is a year when a lot of people were thinking about John Wooden and the pyramid of success. How did that play a role in this team's evolution?
You know, in 2010, we sat down and we really revisited what it meant to be a Bruin and understanding how we were going to get out there and how we were going to tackle this 2010 season. And my assistant, Gina Vecchione, did a wonderful job of coming up with this really creative idea. Let's take the pyramid under John Wooden, get the words, divide them up, and give them to the team. And they all had an opportunity to present a word from the pyramid, starting from the bottom, the foundation, and working all the way to the top, to the competitive greatness last piece. So they would present the word, they would define it, John Wooden's definition, their definition, and then they would attach a person that best represented to be able to put a name and a face together with the word.
A spectacular year, championship number 11, championship number 106. Congratulations to both of you.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back with more Bruin Talk right after this brief public service announcement.
A trophy can be made just about anywhere. But there's one place where champions are made. UCLA, champions meet here.
Welcome back to Bruin Talk. Before we meet our guest, let's take a look at the Athlete of the Week. This week, we honor the UCLA baseball team as our Student Athlete of the Week. This season, the team traveled to historic Rosenblatt Stadium in Omaha, Nebraska to compete in the College World Championship. The Bruins fought their way to the final bracket where they suffered a close 2-1 11th inning loss to University of South Carolina. Both teams had strong bullpens, with both keeping clean of runs until the 5th inning. The 9th inning was action-packed, with runs and an error for Bruins that extended play into extra innings. Throughout bracket play, Bruin pitching limited their opposition to just a .195 batting average and maintained a 3.6 ERA, second only to Texas. In batting, the Bruins posted a .306 with 13 home runs in its first 10 postseason games. This was UCLA's first championship series appearance, and the team finished with an overall record of 51-17, the best in school history. Congratulations to the UCLA baseball team, and good luck next season. If you would like additional information about UCLA athletics, please visit our website at www.uclabruins.com.
And we are pleased to welcome our next guest. He is the Assistant Director of Sports Performance in his 3rd year back at UCLA after some time in Ohio. Welcome to Craig Sowers. Thanks for joining us on Bruin Talk.
Thanks for having me.
Now tell me what the Assistant Director of Sports Performance means.
I'm basically Mike Lynn's right-hand man.
And Mike Lynn is the strength and conditioning coach.
Yeah, he's the head strength coach. And my teams that I work with are mainly men's football, women's soccer, and men's volleyball. And so those are the teams on a daily basis that I work with.
That's quite a mix. I imagine the strength demands of putting together a program for football are a lot different than for soccer or volleyball.
Yeah, that's the key to a good strength coach, is being able to break that down. You know, a soccer player has to have a lot higher fitness level, and so we do a lot more running than what a football player would do, although the football team would probably beg to differ this time of year.
Well, how did your experiences as an athlete come into play when you got into this end of it? You were a football player, played at Akron, a very good school, safety, you had to be in shape. So are you the kind of guy that always liked to be working out? I
did. In high school, I actually had my basketball coach, he'd give me a hard time because he said that I worked harder in the weight room than I did on the basketball court. I just loved working out, and I wasn't a great athlete. I was an okay athlete, and to stay at a high level and compete with the others, especially once I got to the University of Akron, it took that extra work in the weight room and on speed work to keep up with the other people.
So you loved working out. Tell us a little bit about deciding your career and how you followed through with it.
Yeah, when I got to campus first day, I walked in and then had to report the workouts with Coach Ryman in the weight room. And when I walked in, a light went on, and I realized that there was a person who got paid to make kids better. And I immediately knew what I wanted to do. I sat down with Coach Ryman and mapped out my next 4 years in college. And when I was done, was very fortunate. I actually graduated from the University of Akron and came out here to UCLA with Coach Kevin Yoxel and Mike Lynn the first time. So I was very fortunate to be able to come out here right away after college.
How have the demands on athletes changed from the time that you were a young athlete to now with today's college crop?
You know what, I really think that it's become so sports specific. Not in college, most athletes are sports specific. They are either playing football or basketball or playing soccer. But in high school, I feel like the athletes have really become sports specific a lot earlier than they did in the past. You don't see very many multi-sport athletes anymore, just because so many kids start so early developing those skills, whether it be volleyball or soccer or football. And if you're not starting early, you fall behind quick.
The games are played, of course, on the field, but the work that you do starts so much before that. For a typical academic year, you got soccer coming up. How long have you been working with the soccer players in the weight room and the conditioning, getting them ready for the season that's about to start?
Our athletes really sacrifice a lot and pretty much work out year round. I'll typically give soccer 2 weeks off after the season, and they're usually knocking on my door for us to get started again. So we pretty much go year round, and I'll give them downtime and control volume and things like that, and they'll have off weeks here and there, but for the most part, it's year round training.
You get to work with Mike Lynn again. How does it feel working with such an experienced coach?
You know what, working with Coach Lynn's great. He's the type of person who thinks outside the box on so many different things, from the training that we're doing with the athletes to motivational ideas. And that's kind of an area where we spent a lot of time since being back. We have flat screen TVs down in the weight room where we have videos going constantly of the kids working out. And so other athletes and the football players will come in maybe in the second, third group in the morning, and they're able to see the guys in the first group working out, and it's motivation to them. They want to see it. And Coach Lynn's done a lot of things with football in specific about each week in the summertime being a game week. And, for example, this week's Oregon State week, and we have highlights of Oregon State up on the TVs down there. And it's motivating to the kids. The kids are watching it, and it gets them fired up and excited. So constantly he's thinking of that type of thing and really thinking outside of the box.
Well, that explains the rain we've had this week.
Yeah.
I guess that's it. The UCLA has placed a priority over the past decade of upgrading athletic facilities. And of course, the public is most familiar with the Poly renovation that's about to start. But it happened a lot earlier in the strength and weight training facilities. Tell us about UCLA's facilities.
You know what? I think we're at 16,000 square feet now. The first time I was here, we had one small office in the front. We had about 6 coaches in there. And I think at the time we may have had 16 platforms down in the weight room. So scheduling all those teams that come in and dealing with that was difficult. Now that we've expanded the weight room and we have a big turf area down there and we have 28 platforms and squat racks down there now, it makes it a lot more easier to bring multiple teams in. But at the same time, kind of, when you have a big team in there, spread them out a little bit. We like to keep the athlete to coach ratio at about 12 athletes to 1 coach.
Craig, you talked about the sport-specific workouts you have to design, and obviously volleyball, you need to get a lot of vertical, football, more strength, soccer, probably a combination of the two. As you get into the season, how do you tailor the workouts so that you're still keeping the athletes fit, but you're not burning them out for the weekend games?
Sure, definitely, great question. What we do in season is just try to maintain the strength and power that we build up all year. And so we typically will work out about 2 days a week and for about 30 to 45 minutes. And again, it's different for each sport. With volleyball, we're still doing a lot of the Olympic lifts and stuff to continually try to increase that power output and keep them, that vertical jump, keep them above the net. With soccer, I go to a lot more body weight exercises, a lot of core work, a lot of body weight lunges, all kinds of different variations of that to try to stay away from knee injuries and things like that. So it definitely varies, but again, just trying to maintain the strength and fitness levels that we build up all year.
And every team, there are the athletes who are gym rats. They just can't get enough. They always want to be in the weight room. They always want to be on the treadmill, building up their strength. There's the other ones that love playing in the games but don't much care for the conditioning part. What are some of the things that you do to motivate those who may not naturally have an inclination to spend the time in the room?
Sure. You know what? It's an art. That's kind of the art of coaching and figuring out what makes each athlete tick. So once you get to know those athletes, there's some athletes that you can yell at, and as soon as you yell at them, they're motivated, they're going. Other athletes, if you yell at them, they kind of shut down, and so you want to make sure you understand the athletes and what makes them tick and be able to push those buttons that gets them going. And so it's getting to know your athletes better, and I think that's what, as I've matured as a coach, and one of the things I've taken away from Coach Lynn is to really get to know my athletes better. And when I was younger, I probably didn't do as good a job as getting to know the athletes and doing a better job of being positive. Sometimes you got to yell at them and get after them, but being positive as much as possible because the athletes feed off of that.
So there are big differences between the sports that you coach. How do you design workouts specifically? What's your method?
You know what? I sit down and I'll even meet with the coaches and look at the game and see what's important. The number one thing we'll do is look at, what are high injury rates. Taking a look at a soccer player, I'll typically have a lot of knee, ankle type injuries. And so that'll be an area where I want to focus on to make sure that we develop those areas and make them stable so that we don't get injured, because that's our number one goal. We can get them as big and as strong as we want to and as fast as we want to, but if they're injured, excuse me, and sitting on the bench, they're doing us no good. And so we'll first look at that, and then we look at, what kind of energy demands, because that's the way we're going to set up our fitness training. So a football player, typically, they're going to go out for a 5 or 10 second burst, and then they got another 30 seconds rest before they go out again. Whereas soccer is more of a continual moving game. And volleyball, they're so explosive. They're quick, 1 to 2 steps and explosive up and quick side to side. And so really breaking down the game first and then tailoring the workout so that we get the most transfer from the weight room to the court of the field. Because, a lot of times I think people focus on, hey, I want to get them bigger on the bench squat and deadlift and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, if it doesn't make them a better athlete and transfer to their sport, we're wasting our time.
A lot of the stuff you do in the weight room is really quantifiable. He lifted so much weight, or he did so many reps, or did this time on the ergometer, or whatever it might be. How much feedback do you get from actually watching the athletes perform in their games?
Oh, a lot. I mean, I think at the end of the day, we measure our programs and whether they're doing what they're supposed to be doing by maxing out and doing, you know, vertical jumps and broad jumps and fitness tests. But at the end of the day, I know at least myself and Coach Lynn, we measure our job that we've done on wins and losses. And so we're constantly trying to watch the kids. We spend a lot of time out at practice, even watching practice to see how kids are moving. And, you know, there'll be a lot of times we pick up on things even before a kid, you know, a kid's moving funny or something like that. And so we're able to take them and alter a workout later the next day or something like that to help them out.
Can you be a fan, or is it always looking at something as business when you're watching the athletes perform?
I think you can be a fan, but you got to be careful. I'm a coach, and my job is to make athletes better. And so if you're not careful and you become too big of a fan and you get hung up on it, you lose track of what you're really there for. You know, one of the great things that I've heard Coach Wooden say is that, you know, when he's gone and passed, that he wants people to remember him by how he made athletes better than they could have made themselves at the end of the day. And that's, I take that to heart. That's really what I want to do.
When you were previously here, you helped with multiple national championships. What have your goals been since you've come back?
My goals are to win championships, and my teams are very clear with that. You know, one of the teams coming up right now is women's soccer, and I believe we've been to the Final Four now 7 straight years. And so we've been talking all year and working and pushing hard to push over that hump. It's time to go out and win one.
Greg, we thank you for a fascinating look inside the teams. When you're watching these teams, remember there's a whole staff of people like Craig who are back in the weight room putting a lot into that performance you're seeing on the field. Thanks for joining us on Bruin Talk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. We'll see you again next time. For Naomi, I'm Dave. So long for now.